if you haven't seen or heard enough of me today, I'm the next speaker, so I'll spare you the embarrassment of introducing myself again. But I wanted to build on some of the key themes today around collaboration. One of the key factors in putting together today's event was to bring, as we've done, people together with a real interest, passion and experience in this subject, but more importantly to work out where we go from here, not individually but around particular issues, to learn from experience, work together on particular projects and initiatives. You heard from Jim earlier our approach to Circular Peterborough and indeed the Future Peterborough programme, and our experience to date, I guess, is that whilst individual projects around a city are invaluable to growing that circular economy expertise and beginning the shift within a city, actually to make the change on a big scale and at speed, which we've heard from many speakers today, some of the environmental challenges facing us are indeed urgent, requires cities, towns and cities to create the enabling conditions for that sort of thing to happen en masse, and for public authorities to set an example to others. So I wanted to build on that by considering how through, and I have some thoughts here on projects we're currently working on, which you may be interested in joining, how we can work together beyond this conference to collaborate around circular economy. Again, just as a reminder, Jim covered some of this in his presentation earlier, this is our, if you like, our vision, our aims around this. So you'll see it's very much stitched into the sustainability, environmental footprint, the economy through economic development and inward investment and so on, but very much, as you see from the last one, progressing through collaboration. In a very real sense, our programs so far have been co-created. There have been collaborative initiatives. We've brought together people from all sectors, so we have many represented here in the room today to really help us develop the vision you've just seen, the roadmap, and some of the initiatives happening on the ground in Peterborough. We continue to build and develop those networks, and as I say, people like Brian from Rail World and Tim from Caterpillar Perkins, from Peterborough Environment City Trust and so on, all great partners, all working together around this common theme. We've developed sector champions, we've got our Peterborough, Circular Peterborough commitment, and a whole range of other initiatives, such as our Share Peterborough, which a platform which has over 300 registered users. So how can other towns and cities, those represented here and beyond, how can we build on this collaborative approach, and that is the very nature, if you like, of circular economy, to speed up, to build that momentum across the UK and beyond. One idea which we developed some years ago, but have continued to develop, is the idea of a circular city toolkit for towns and cities. In one sense, this can happen in a virtual way. It can be what we're doing today, really, sharing good practice and experience. But the idea we had was to embed this in a digital, data-driven tool with individual, we called them plugins at the time, individual plugins around a particular city's theme. So whether it's Brighton, whether it's Leeds, whether it's Peterborough, you develop your tool. It could be as simple as a checklist, or it could be a very complicated algorithm around building materials, whatever it might be. But that each of those tools are built to a particular API, picking up Gilly's point earlier, so that they can plug into this central hub, which starts to collate data to inform one another, and that tool gradually grows with time, so that the number of tools that are available to a town or city interested in this concept grows, and that they themselves start to develop new tools around their particular priorities. The metrics collected, we've heard throughout the day about the importance of measurement and data in monitoring the circular economy and measuring progress. That central core could be the place where those measures, those KPIs, the qualitative and quantitative elements are captured and reported, and that the whole central core, if you like, can be shared and accessible by a whole range of towns and cities and other partners. So it's very ambitious, and we haven't got hugely far in terms of the digital version of this. And just to give an example of the sort of tools that we talked about being part of the toolkit, you'll see there everything from performance management to community engagement, government plans, policies, how you set that context for things to happen. So that was one particular idea that we had, and I know Katie and I submitted several Horizon 2020 bids, as it turned out unsuccessfully, with that as one of the core themes. Another area, and I know we have a colleague here from BSI today, Peter Lee, is to look at standards as a way of capturing best practice. We in Peterborough are fortunate to have developed over a number of years now a really close relationship with BSI, going all the way back to the Smart City Framework, PAS 181 as it's known, which is now an ISO standard. And the more recent, Jim referred to this earlier, the BS 8001, the Circular City, the Circular Economy standard, very much aimed at individual organisations and how an individual organisations can move from that linear to circular approach. We wondered about the benefit, if you like, of applying the principles embodied in that document to develop a circular city standard. Not all of them will be directly applicable, but it would be a really good exercise to try and do collaboratively. It's not something we could do on our own as a city, but we think that would be a really good way of capturing the sort of examples that we've heard today about how a city can set those enabling conditions and encourage individual good practice to happen. So that's something we very much hope we can build on. And discussions are ongoing with BSI, and I'm sure Peter will take that back with him. And I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts about the value of that, and whether you'd be interested in, if you like, joining the discussion and providing that extra weight to the argument that this might be a strong way forward. The third example, which again, many people in the room will have heard of, is that of something we've called small giants. So if you're a large city, probably cover your ears momentarily, but this is about small to medium-sized places, such as Peterborough, where sometimes it's quite difficult to access the sort of funding one needs to make transformational change. The sort of funding we see going to large cities would be transformational in a city the size of Peterborough. Instead of a pilot in one small part of a city around one sector, a relatively small amount of money could actually transform the way things operate on quite a large scale to the benefit of a larger number of people. So we developed a number of years ago, and it's a pity a colleague, Graham Coakley, had to leave at lunchtime, but it's something that Graham and I have worked on over a number of years, this concept of the Small Giants initiative, harnessing the power, collective power, if you like, of small European cities. And you'll see from a graph in a moment that it is where most people live in Europe, for the mutual benefit of those cities and everybody that lives within them, and effect that positive change at a much more rapid pace. It's part of the that's the graph I showed you. It's quite an interesting graph to show the number and size of cities, to show that something around the small to medium size is actually representative of most of the population of somewhere like Europe, and that's reflected across the world. And it's really about designing solutions for small, sharing those solutions, aggregating the demand and scaling it up so that those solutions become more attractive to the markets, if you like. We started a workshop, I forget where we were now, but we started to look at how you would define a small giant. How prescriptive did we need to be? And we came up with a number of things about population size, because often what's a city in the UK is very different to what's regarded as a city in Holland, for example, in terms of why it has that term applied to it. But after all of that, we came to the solution that really being a giant is more about an ambition to develop and to work in collaboration with others. So you're small until you decide to collaborate or are willing to collaborate, if you like. And we thought that had quite a nice feel to it, rather than turning people away at the door and saying you're too small or you're too big. So that's effectively where we got to. Why are small giants important? Well, as I said on an earlier slide, it is about market scale and impact. Some of the solutions that cities would need to procure often are not attractive to large industry, because by definition they're small solutions for a small area. Building that scale and impact around common challenges does make that more attractive, and there are some really good examples about that under the same European Innovation Partnership, the Humble Lamppost being one of them. And again, if Graham were here, he'd talk to you about that throughout the lunch break. But that's something, again, where the standardization of an approach is leading to a much greater market interest in working with cities across Europe. And it's about identifying those common solutions. It builds a positive profile for cities, so that sort of best practice, the ability to work with others, building that collaboration and knowledge base, and as I've said earlier, really starts to accelerate the pace of change. So where are we at the moment? It's led by Peterborough. We don't have a great deal of resources to put into it. It won't surprise you to know. But the idea is that we build a sort of hub and spoke mechanism across Europe, 5 to 10 cities in total, but building that collaborative network both in the UK, but then that UK network linking in through this approach to other European cities. But we identify a suite of common city challenges. And I'm pleased to say that when we tested it out with small cities at various meetings in Europe, circular economy and approaches to circular economy was very much seen as one of the areas where collaborative work could be of huge benefit to many. So that's very much why we're still pushing on this, but we will benefit from other topics as well. And at the moment we're seeking funding, hopefully through the LWARB Act call. Again, the much mentioned Brexit may put pay to that, but we're pursuing that at the moment and beginning to develop a bid with partners in 4 or 5 other countries. This here is a leaflet we prepared, which I think you can find on the European Investment Partnership website, which just largely explains what I've said already. But again, interested to get your views on that. And finally, really, as I started this piece, was about building from today's event. What we intend to do is pull together the expertise and the knowledge we've found today through, you'll have seen that we've been filming, or colleagues have been filming this and taking photographs. There will be a good montage pulling out the feel, the enthusiasm, if you like, of today's event. We're discussing with participants, speakers, whether we can share their slides. Most of them, I'm sure, are willing to that, but there may need to be 1 or 2 tweaks to some of them because of the information they contain. So we'll be sharing that. We'll be sharing the outputs from the workshops, which you will be going into shortly after I finish, and building perhaps some collaborative networks from those. But more importantly, I want to continue the dialogue with the towns and cities and other partners related here. So we try and build a momentum, hopefully towards a 2020 version of the event, where we build on the learning from this year, and in that year that we've identified some key opportunities to work together, either as 2 towns or cities, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and really start to build that collaborative network. So that's all I wanted to say today, apart from a few conclusions. Really, what I've said earlier, it is urgent. We need to do this at scale. We need to do it quickly. Collaboration, I think, is the only way forward, and we've heard that as a theme running through most of the presentations today. And the fact that we've got so many interested and passionate people together in one room, we must build on that and really work towards some exciting solutions for the future. Thank you very much. you.